Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. This week, the chef of an award-winning Asheville restaurant was shaped by memories of growing up in West Virginia.
And I remember running out into the field and waddling back, armful of corn, and we sat in the front porch and shucked it. And we boiled it. I remember slathering it probably with country crock, and my head exploded off my shoulders. And it was like, I've never tasted corn before until this day.
The Seeing Hand Association brings together people who are visually impaired to learn the craft of chair caning.
Some days I'd come here and just cry. And then you meet these people and you hear all their stories and you see what they've had to overcome and that they smile and they laugh every day. It got me out of my funk. It brought my confidence back.
And a West Virginia community grapples with its population of feral cats.
That population has the potential to explode if it's not checked. Being a rural county or a rural state, spay neuter has usually been the second thought for generations before us.
You'll hear these stories and more this week inside Appalachia. Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. Food can evoke specific memories. Maybe a chili dog takes you back to minor league ball games you watched with your dad. A slice of salted watermelon can remind us of summer. Chef William Disson's memories are seasoned with the flavors of West Virginia's mountains. He's now taking some of those memories and turning them into award-winning cuisine at the Marketplace. That's his James Beard Award-nominated restaurant in Asheville, North Carolina. Folkways reporter Margaret McLeod Leaf spoke with Disson at the Capitol Market in Charleston, West Virginia. He was in town to talk about his debut cookbook, Thoughtful Cooking.
You write about learning to garden and cook alongside your grandmother in West Virginia. What was a typical day with her, from picking vegetables to getting dinner on the table?
One of my most vivid memories is growing up and being at my grandmother Jane's farm in Sandyville, West Virginia. And they lived up in the holler, and they had a nice house and garden and right along the creek side, and they had bees to pollinate the garden, and they had a canning shed adjacent to the garden and a small barn. And really, one of my most vivid memories was, peak summer, probably mid-August. You could feel the humidity like hanging in the holler. And my grandmother said, "All right, Billy, go get some corn." And I remember running out into the field and waddling back as, young kid, armful of corn. And we sat in the front porch and shucked it. And she had a pot of salt water going in the stove. And we boiled it. I remember slathering it probably with country crock and put some salt on it. And my head exploded off my shoulders. And it was like, I've never tasted corn before until this day. And for me, it was really inspiring because I felt like I learned something about food and connection to nature and why things taste a certain way when they're grown locally, when they're fresh, and when they're ripe. And that didn't really hit me until later on in life, but it's a moment I think back about quite a bit.
So those experiences clearly shaped how you cook today.
100%. Fast forward, I was very fortunate. I went to culinary school at the Culinary Institute of America in New York, and when I was there were 13 master chefs there teaching, and put it in perspective, there's only about 65 in the world. So I was very blessed to have some of the best chefs teaching me. I remember this one French chef, and I won't imitate his accent, but he said, if you want to be the best chef, you have to use the best ingredients. And at the time, he was using things like foie gras and truffles and caviar. And as I, formulated my palate as a chef and kind of the recipe repertoire that I wanted to use, I had an aha moment, really regressing back and remembering that experience at my grandmother's farm and thinking, if I want to be the best chef, I need to use fresh ingredients because fresh is best.
So you've written your first cookbook, and I'm wondering why it's important to you to have written this cookbook, and also why now?
For years, I was trying to figure out what my story was to tell. Being from Appalachia, we're all storytellers here, right? There's a lot of written, but also a lot of verbal history. And but for me, the story to tell was about the connection to our community, to the heritage we have here in Appalachia, but also to the connection we have to the earth. I'm not a Greenpeace hippie by any means, but I do feel like what I learned from my grandparents was about the importance of taking care of nature and taking care of your community. For them, they didn't, poison their fields with chemicals because they wanted to be able to till and grow. And, there were weeds in the fields, and they said those weeds are good, right? We till them back into the field, they add nutrition into the soil. honeybees to pollinate the garden, right? And these were things that I didn't really understand as a child, but if you look at kind of that connection to nature, you realize it's all very cyclical and connected. I think after my travels and educating myself and finding my way back to Asheville and back to Appalachia, I started to have these aha moments. I love city life. I love the energy in the city and the noises and the people. But when you get into the mountains and you can go get lost in the woods and take a hike and, listen to a stream or a waterfall, there's this connection you have that you don't get anywhere else. And the beauty of Appalachia really was kind of calling me home. And finding myself back there, I really felt like I had this story to tell people about that. From being able to travel around the world and travel around the country, people, I think, they have these ideas of who we are as Appalachians, hillbillies or rednecks, and, we're all related to one another, right? But I think when they get here and they come to visit and they meet people like us, they realize that we are, we're some of the best people around, and our culture and our history and our heritage is really deep.
I noticed that the word thoughtful is in the title of the book, and I wonder if you can tell me more about that, what you mean by thoughtful cooking.
It's kind of like peeling the layers of an onion back. There's this idea of cooking with intention, right? Planning a meal out. In the kitchen, we have a French term called mise en place, and it literally means everything in its place. But it's also the prep you make, the things you cut and you prepare as you want to cook in the kitchen. But it's also thoughtful in terms of, thinking about who you're getting your food from, right? How are they growing the food? Are you growing the food? What are you doing to take care of the earth? And are you doing things that, help the community around you? And then the even bigger picture, is I believe in sustainability very deeply, but I'm not out hitting people over the head with it. I believe it's a way we should implement those ideals into our day-to-day lives. Because if we want our next generation, the generation after that, to have nice things like we have to take care of them. And this idea that we can all do little things by eating thoughtfully and cooking thoughtfully, go to the farmer's market, talk to the growers that are growing delicious and nutritious food, and try it. Even if you're scared of an ingredient, you know what? Be brave. Go out and try something new.
So what would you say are the tastes of Appalachia? How would you describe what does Appalachian cuisine taste like?
I was really fortunate. A few years back, I got asked to do a TV show with this very famous chef named Gordon Ramsay. And he asked me to be an ambassador for his TV show to show him through, Central Appalachia and the Smoky Mountains, Blue Ridge Mountains. And I took him out and we went foraging and we went fly fishing and we cooked a lot of indigenous ingredients, a lot of Cherokee dishes. And after the show, we sat down and we were talking. He said, I've traveled the world 10 times over. He said, Appalachia reminds me of places like Tuscany, Italy, that are world-renowned for their cuisine. The heirloom ingredients, the heritage cooking techniques, the sense of place. He said, I've never been to a place like this. I can't believe the world isn't just putting you all up on a pedestal.
At your restaurant in Asheville, the Marketplace, obviously you serve Appalachian-influenced cuisine. I'm sure people come to that restaurant because they are seeking a taste of home. And then you have people who've maybe never tasted some of these dishes or flavors. And I'm wondering what reactions you get from people inside Appalachia, but people that are passing through that are outside Appalachia. What kind of reactions do you get?
I always joke the Appalachian gateway drug or gateway ingredient are ramps. People say, what's a ramp? I said, well, it's a wild, like a wild onion, wild garlic that grows in the forest. It's not cultivated, and it only grows for a month of the year. So we try to get it and pickle it and preserve it and keep it so we can have that flavor throughout the year. When people taste it and they say, this is a really delicious flavor, especially if you're a garlic fan, ramps are like garlic on steroids. So I think there's flavors like that. There's flavors of, wild food, of, forage food, wild mushrooms. There's flavors of, campfire cooking, and just rich, hearty dishes that stick to your soul, right? And I think those are things that people talk a lot about, Southern food being, kind of quintessential American cuisine. But Appalachia is the backbone of the South, and I feel like our cuisine really is wrought in our history and heritage. Not just of modern America, but also of, historically of Native American cuisine and that hunter-gatherer background, and also food of necessity.
I'm just thinking about Thanksgiving coming up. Obviously in Asheville, that's going to look different for a lot of people. But I'm also wondering, what are some of the Thanksgiving things that you have around your own table?
One of my favorite ingredients, I worked with Slow Food USA for this, for an ingredient. They have a thing called the Arc of Taste, where they are preserving different heirloom ingredients. And one of them that's really near and dear to me is the candy roaster squash. And this type of, hardy squash, pumpkin, that was, it was cultivated originally by the Cherokee of Central Appalachia. And it's this kind of long banana-looking shape squash, and the flavor is really delicious to me. So we love to make a candy roaster squash soup out of it. Roast it off slowly, nice and caramelized, and cook it slow and low into really delicious pureed soup. Other flavors I like. I love stuffing. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I love a good crispy but also chewy stuffing. And I love mushrooms. And this time of year, there's a wild mushroom that grows called a maitake, or a hen of the wood mushroom. And we love to roast that off and fold that into our stuffing. To me, it just adds a really kind of depth of flavor. I love soup beans, cornbread. That's quintessential Appalachian cuisine. But over Thanksgiving, just setting a meal together, and regardless of your background or culture, I think that idea of kind of setting the Appalachian table and sitting with your family and sitting with your friends and sharing a meal is something that is really quintessential to who we are as a culture and a community.
Very well said. I agree. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
William Disson's new cookbook is Thoughtful Cooking, Recipes Rooted in the New South. A lot of folks in Appalachia grew up with caned chairs in the house. You know the kind, a wooden frame with a woven seat. Maybe your parents or grandparents had a set in the kitchen. You don't see the old cane chairs as much as you used to. Cane doesn't last forever. It breaks down and needs to be replaced. Few people know how to do that or where to go to fix their chairs. So a lot of them are discarded or thrown away. But they don't have to be. At a workshop in Wheeling, West Virginia, a community of skilled workers repair old chairs and show that not everything that looks broken has to be thrown out. Folkways reporter Clara Hazlett brings us this story.
Super duper tight, under, over, super duper tight.
Bianca Miller is standing eye level with a wooden chair that's been placed on top of a table. Now, usually chairs go under the table, and usually chairs are for sitting. But if you sat on this chair, you'd fall right through. The seat is gone.
Under, over, under, over.
Bianca's weaving a new seat onto the chair's empty wooden frame. She's using a material called rush, which looks almost like a long, thick shoestring. It's brittle and needs a good long soak before you can weave with it.
Say a little prayer, because I like my fingers.
As she weaves, Bianca pulls at the rush to tighten it.
Tight, super duper tight. Make sure your fingers turn the darkest red they can possibly turn. And if you lose the first few layers of skin, it's okay. It's all for the chair. There you go.
Bianca canes by memory, touch, and whatever level of vision she has that day.
With my disease, I never know if I'm going to wake up with vision or not.
She was diagnosed with uveitis in 2020. It's an inflammatory eye disease.
And in the process of getting treatment, I ended up going totally blind for 10 months.
Bianca eventually regained some vision, but it's unpredictable.
Today I have floaters and flashes, and it's a little bit cloudy, almost as if you're looking through a lava lamp, because you just never know what to expect.
Although Bianca's sight isn't guaranteed day to day, it's not really necessary to do this job, and to do it well. In fact, everyone in this workshop has limited visual ability.
There you go.
It's a nonprofit called Seeing Hand. They provide employment and specialized services for folks that are blind or visually impaired. Employees are trained in a variety of skills, like refurbishing fire extinguishers, making and restoring mops, caning chairs.
You know, the fire extinguishers, the chairs, the mops, the brooms. It all makes sure we have a job. It's job security. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 of us that do the chairs.
Bianca came to Seeing Hand about 2 years ago.
I kind of forgot about this place until my mother had reminded me that my grandfather was here. He had went blind all of a sudden in his early 30s, which is when I went blind.
It's been years now since Bianca's grandfather worked here, but Seeing Hand is still around, marking nearly a century of providing services and support in the community. Mike Cunningham started at Seeing Hand last year.
So I work 3 days a week. It's first time I've been working since 2012. Before this job, my activities outside of the house were 45 minutes at the grocery store. Basically was stuck in the house for, 10 years.
Mike's totally blind in his left eye. The vision in his right eye is slightly better, but not great.
I have 0 straight lines. Every straight line is curved. So it's more of a distortion than it is, blindness. So it's a definite impairment.
Mike is weaving with cane, a material that's thinner and more delicate than rush.
All right, let's see.
Following an intricate pattern, he carefully threads a strip of cane under, over, over.
Mike is newer, but he doubts himself a little more than he should because he does a beautiful job. And I shouldn't say that because every time I say good job or wow, it looks really good, something always happens. So, Mike, terrible. Yeah, burn it.
Mike's nearly done with this chair. He says it's been his hardest yet.
A lot of the time you talk to the chair. If it's not going very easy, you don't say very nice things.
Sometimes caning can be frustrating. I stick my tongue out sometimes because there's spots where it's hard to do.
That's Janine Schmidt. Her work table is right across from Mike's.
There you go. Here's a cloth.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome.
Janine is 81. She learned how to cane over 40 years ago, before experiencing any vision loss. These days, she largely relies on muscle memory.
You almost can feel if it's right. It's like second nature. Your fingers kind of are on automatic. This is a chair that's probably 100 years old.
Around these parts, 100 years old is pretty average. Bianca shows me a row of chairs that are patiently waiting their turn to undergo chair surgery. There's an old rocker covered in dust.
Yeah, that one's going to be really hard to do.
There's one with a fist-sized hole right through the cane.
I love the dirty and the ugly and I wouldn't say ugly, unique. It's absolutely beautiful. We get to work on them. You know how old these chairs are?
Most chairs here are brought in by customers from around the Ohio Valley, but the chairs themselves come from all over.
Some of them are stamped, Italy or Germany, and some of them are stamped like Indiana or New York, and you wonder, okay, how did this even come about? You know what I mean? I don't know. My brain can go on forever, and it's just a chair, for gosh sakes. I mean,
Before working here at Seeing Hand, Bianca was a bus driver.
the bus's name was Twinkles. I love that job. I miss that job.
When she started to regain some vision, her goal was to get her commercial driver's license back.
I had to come to a realization that'll never happen. Sorry. I loved that job. But Seeing Hand has brought that back. When I first started working here, I was depressed. I gained a lot of weight. I was on a lot of meds. I was up and down, back and forth. Some days I'd come here and just cry, like, should have even came. And then you meet these people and you hear all their stories and you see what they've had to overcome and that they smile and they laugh every day. It got me out of my funk. It brought my confidence back.
Most people have really no idea what certain things can do to you when you're vision impaired. And it's nice to have people, if you explain to them, they know what you mean, and they're like brothers and sisters.
So this place is so much more than just, a paycheck.
This is my second home. Let's put it like that. Got it.
Janine is nearly finished with her chair. So is Mike. When they're done, the chairs will be sent downstairs to join the ranks of the other finished chairs, all freshly stained and tightly caned. And in a few weeks, Bianca's chair will be done too, repaired and ready for another 100 years. For Inside Appalachia, I'm Clara Hazlett.
That story and the interview before it are part of our Folkways reporting project, which covers arts and culture in our region. Along with the story for radio, Clara produced a short video about the people at Seeing Hand. That video, and a few others, will appear on West Virginia Public Broadcasting as part of an Inside Appalachia television special. The episode premieres at 8 p.m. Thanksgiving on WVPB and will be available to watch online starting November 25th. You can find more at our website, wvpublic.org. Later in the show, 2 Virginia high schools were rivals for decades. So what happened when they had to consolidate?
It's weird. It's not the best, but we're getting through it. Yeah, we gotta have that Cougar spirit. I'm glad we kept the name.
You're Inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams.
Support for Inside Appalachia is provided by Concord University, focusing on students' futures. Classes available at concord.edu/apply.
There's nothing hotter than a high school sports rivalry. For me growing up, that meant the Allegheny Mountaineers versus the Covington Cougars. I was a Mountaineer, and beating the Cougars was a top priority in every sport, but especially football. That dynamic loomed in the back of my head as I headed to Allegheny's homecoming game this year.
Hello.
One, please.
One, $7.
This was my first game in nearly 30 years, and walking in felt, well, weird.
Here come your Allegheny Cougars!
That's not right. I was a Mountaineer. The fight song sounds familiar, but something's off. And we're here at Covington's home football field. This is enemy territory. As you might have guessed by now, this is the Allegheny football team, but there's been a key change. Starting this year, Allegheny and Covington merged school systems. There's no longer separate school systems, just the single consolidated district. So this is the first homecoming game of the newly combined Allegheny Cougars. And I'm here because I wanted to understand who's coming home for homecoming, if not alumni who previously attended separate schools. In truth, this merger has been a long time coming. Allegheny County sits on the Virginia-West Virginia border, right on Interstate 64. Its economy was built largely around a paper mill and a railroad, but neither are the dominant employers they once were, and the county's population has declined from its height in the 50s. School enrollment dropped too. Covington mostly remained small but stable, while Allegheny lost about 1,000 students over the last 20 years. It reached a point where, for a lot of reasons, it really didn't make sense to maintain separate school systems. So after decades of debate and years of planning, Allegheny and Covington finally merged. But it was a tricky process. The schools are still making tweaks and adjustments, and probably will be for years to come. And a lot of people still have mixed feelings, to say the least. When I first walk in the game, I ask a couple of teachers whether I might see alumni wearing old Mountaineer and Cougar letter jackets.
You probably won't see it.
How come?
Everybody's trying to band together to make this work. Because there's been so much negative, people are so negative not wanting it to work.
And it turns out a lot of folks my age and older are wary about talking on the record. It's not so much they've got a hot take. I think it's more that everyone is nervous about saying the wrong thing and getting people all fired up again. But the more I'm there, the more I see signs that people are coming together around this process. Take that fight song, for instance. turns out writing the team's new song involved a lot of negotiation and compromise.
So with the fight song, it was very public.
Here's Allegheny band director Adam Eggleston.
We had to bring together all of the old fight songs and make something new for this group to hold on to. And I think we've managed to do most of that pretty well. And so they're blending together and we're moving right along.
How do you merge a fight song?
Very carefully. But we hired some composers we'd worked with before, some arrangers that we trusted, who didn't have any allegiance to either side. Therefore, we knew they couldn't play favorites. And so we let them piece it together very carefully.
The same goes for choreography. Laura DeSilvi is Allegheny High School's color guard instructor.
So the first kick line that we do in the fight song is from Allegheny. That's the first, I think, 8 counts. And then the next 8 counts is actually the kick line from Covington. And then we made a whole new section for the last half. So the kids actually got to come up with that.
The cheers, too. The band is also playing a couple of new songs for the first time. There's Taylor Swift's Industry Baby. And another tune you might recognize.
One of the other new songs we brought in this year was Country Roads. We've seen that the student section and everybody, they really get into that, start singing along.
But the main thing for a lot of students is that the consolidated football team is good, like really good. They roll over Carroll County, who, like a lot of Allegheny's opponents now, traveled here from more than 2 hours away. Nick Fry was part of the Cougar Maniacs student section.
Covington had a lot of athleticism, but Allegheny had a lot of strength and size. So like the merge is like the two things you need in football put together, like athleticism and then size put together. So it's amazing.
And I saw plenty of signs of how students are weathering the merger. I spot Olivia Bell and Nicole Fry because they're both wearing face paint. They say the transition has had its ups and downs.
It's weird. It's not the best, but we're getting through it. Yeah, we gotta have that Cougar spirit. I'm glad we kept the name. I'm glad we kept the name.
Tell me about face painting. Did y'all do this before?
Yeah, we do. We just got. We go out every single time. Yeah.
Does it feel weird wearing different colors?
A little. Yeah. I'm glad we kept the navy.
Yeah, the navy. It's good not having a full change.
Other traditions continue unabated, like a group of students wearing senior jeans. What are senior jeans? I'll let Cadence nicely explain.
Well, shout out to Susanna W.Va and Alyssa Taylor for the inspo. Last year, they were our seniors, and they did it, so we just carried the tradition. Like you put your grade on them, your school, you can put what sports you play, your name, your initials, mascot, whatever you want to put on them, you can. I have pom-poms on mine, and I love them.
Talking to students makes it easy to catch school spirit. There's the band, the cheers, the game on the field, and especially the student cheering section, led by the self-identified Cougar Maniacs.
Hey, y'all better hurry it up. Hey.
Two of them took a break from leading chants to speak with me.
I'm Tanner Hope.
Aiden Roman. I'm a senior.
I am a junior.
We got the most spirit out of everyone. We're always chanting.
Just trying to make everybody have a good time and enjoy the game.
Were y'all Allegheny or Covington before?
I was Allegheny.
I'm Covington.
Really?
Yeah.
So what's it like having to be both together now?
It's fun. It's interesting.
It was different at first, but I've gotten used to it. I've made new friends and all that stuff.
I think it was worth it.
Yeah, it was worth it. Yeah, for sure.
Were y'all maniacs for your respective sides before this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
Was it weird? Was it awkward?
Yeah.
It was awkward at first, but as you can see, we're all
We're all Cougars now.
Yeah.
So
This merger just brought the whole community together instead of against each other. It seems like.
AHS on top.
Nah, CHS on top.
Ladies and gentlemen, the game is on. Your final score, Carroll County.
Allegheny ended up defeating Carroll County 47-0. The Cougars season eventually concluded with a loss in the playoffs. The team finished with a record of 9 wins and 2 losses. West Virginia is experiencing one of the worst droughts in a century. That lack of rain ushered in an early fire season at the New River Gorge National Park and Preserve with the Bury Mountain Fire. WVPB's Keelan Bailey reports on how firefighters are gearing up for what looks to be a busy fire season.
Tom Fielden was standing inside a corrugated metal garage as long-needed rain fell outside.
We're in Glen Jean, West Virginia at the National Park Service headquarters of New River Gorge at the fire cache.
Fielden is a fire management officer for the Allegheny Zone. He's been in the position for 5 years, making his way east after learning to fight wildfires out west. When it comes to federal lands like the New River Gorge, firefighting is a national response effort. The day Fielden was there, 2 crews were on site, one based year-round at New River Gorge and one that had arrived days earlier from Las Cruces, New Mexico, in response to a call for help. The call went out when the Bury Mountain Fire started the week before in the midst of a persisting drought in West Virginia. The National Interagency Fire Center responded with the closest available team, over 1,500 miles away.
Just a phone call saying, hey, we got picked up.
Robert Garcia, a first-year firefighter, is part of the Bureau of Land Management Firefighter Severity Detail. They made the 3-day road trip from New Mexico to West Virginia in their specialized fire truck. But the hilly Appalachian terrain is a stark contrast to the deserts and mountains of Las Cruces.
Over there in Las Cruces, we have like these, they kind of look like a dinosaur backbone, and it's way different here. They're huge, like, I don't even know how many feet, thousands of feet. But it's just a different site. And then here they got that river here. It's beautiful.
Garcia said he is more used to ponderosa stands or grasslands than acres of hickories and oaks. But even with a standardized level of basic training, these firefighters are used to adapting to different landscapes and different coworkers. That means the federal firefighting community is often tight-knit.
It is an incredibly small world.
That community is apparent in the New River Gorge cache, from a shelf of animal skulls and crew photos to a wall plastered with different agency patches.
You know, our people travel all over the country, and people will come here and they'll leave their patches here.
Under and around those decorations, there's also a range of different site-specific equipment.
This is what we put everything in here to outfit our crews.
At New River Gorge, that equipment includes leaf blowers, a staple of establishing fire lines in eastern woodlands, and red bags, packed with supplies like sleeping bags and ready-to-eat meals for indeterminate trips into the field. And while the West has seen larger, more frequent, and more destructive fires in the past, West Virginia is also seeing more extreme fires, like the Steep Valley Fire last year, with the potential for more as droughts intensify in populated mountains. Meaning, while off-season preparation has also started to ramp up, that the National Firefighting Force is traveling around a lot more.
What we've been doing over the past, 5 to 10 years is moving firefighters across the country more and more to fill in those gaps.
Michelle Faherty, a fuels specialist who has worked at the park for almost a decade, showed me a recent video from the field of a particularly unusual sight, burning moss. Usually, fires in Appalachia are fueled by surface vegetation, but the fire that prompted the call to New Mexico had burned through the duff, deeper layers of vegetation. Faherty said the atypical fire season is apparent throughout the park.
We had early coloration starting with the leaves, and just all of our laurels, they were just all droopy and folded over. So it's definitely some of the worst conditions that I have seen since I've been working here.
Fall fire season in West Virginia officially started in October and will extend through December. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Keelan Bailey.
Thanksgiving is here, which means we've officially entered the winter holiday season. It's a time of year that's full of joy, but for someone with dementia, It can be hard. The noise and the bustle can be frightening. But there are things caregivers can do to include people with dementia in holiday gatherings. Teresa Morris is program director for the West Virginia chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. She spoke with West Virginia Public Broadcasting's Eric Douglas.
Let's talk about the holidays. We've got Thanksgiving, we've got Christmas, we've got Hanukkah, we've got all kinds of reasons families are together. What should you do? What should a caregiver know and do to adjust things to help out?
So we know that, holidays are challenging for everyone. Anyways. And then if you throw someone in that, has dementia, I think the biggest thing is as caregivers, we have to remember that we have to adjust our expectation of what the time is going to be like. You can still have fun, you can still have a fantastic celebration, but it's probably not going to be the same. You want to try to check in with the person that has the disease. How you doing? Are you okay? You want to focus on things that bring happiness, and letting go of maybe activities that are overwhelming to the person with the disease. I know my family, at least, our celebrations are loud. That might be something you have to take a look at and maybe change that a little bit.
I remember reading somewhere somebody talking about just not having the whole family over or having them come in small groups.
Yes. Yeah. Those are great ideas, just to try to limit that stimulation, that overstimulation. Even if you can somehow have a quiet room, maybe people at different times go in there to speak to the person with the disease. You just want to try to lower their stress. Mm-hmm. Because I promise it will lower your stress as well.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And we also just want to think about keeping the person with the disease on a familiar routine. If they eat lunch every day at 12, then you don't want to have your dinner at 2. You want to try to keep that schedule for them. And make sure that other family members or people coming in know that mom is having some trouble with her word finding. It might take her longer to answer. She might not think of the word. Always want these folks to feel a sense of self throughout the disease. It's important that we don't just go, oh, mom has Alzheimer's, she can't help us anymore.
Put her in a corner.
Right, because they still want to feel connected. On some level, mom probably knows she always makes the mashed potatoes. So those types of things. And again, just involve her or him, as much as you can. Maybe they can put the napkins on the or on the table.
Yeah, I think you said it earlier, but I think that point of lowering expectations that this isn't going to be the way we did it. We've done it this way for 20 years, and the kids sang, and no, that's
right.
That's overload for most of us anyway. But it is definitely overload for somebody who's not processing things.
Exactly. So you have to take the perspective of the person with the disease. It's very different than what my or your perspective would be. The person with the disease, they can't change. They've lost the ability to problem solve, to sequence, to even speak sometimes. So it's on us as caregivers to change our interaction.
That was Teresa Morris, Program Director for the West Virginia chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, speaking with Eric Douglas. In 2020, Pennsylvania teacher Matthew Ferentz decided to run for the state's House of Representatives. He filed his paperwork, launched a campaign, and set out to meet voters in his home district. Ferentz ran as a Democrat, and he lost. By a lot. Ferentz wrote about the experience in a book. It's called I Hate It Here. Please vote for me. Essays on Rural Political Decay. Bill Lynch spoke with Ferentz about the experience.
I Hate It Here. Please vote for me. That is a catchy title.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's just start with the basis for who you were before you ran for election.
As a profession, I'm a creative writing professor. I call myself the backup fiction writer when we need a fiction writer. I grew up on a farm in southwestern Pennsylvania. I was a 4-H kid, but I was also a theater kid and a musician. So I'm all kind of a mismatch of person, which is familiar to anybody in the region, I would say.
Had you ever run for anything else? Class president, dog catcher, sergeant of arms for the chess club, anything?
I did run for homecoming king in high school. I won because of my speech. For whatever reason, my high school had all the king candidates make a speech in favor of one of the queen candidates. And I made a funny speech. And so my oratory and rhetoric swept us both to victory. So that was my only elected experience prior to walking to work one day and deciding I was going to run for state office.
What made you want to run?
At that time, the person who is still the rep in our area, he wanted to try to save money for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania by ending higher ed grants and scholarships for students who studied, in his words, poetry or any other pre-Walmart major. And then when word got out about that statement, and he was discussing this with his peers in Harrisburg, he apologized to Walmart. But then the more I thought about it, the more it also became a big issue of what you count for when you're from a rural place and a high poverty place. So the city where we live, Meadville, Pennsylvania, a quarter of the population lives below the poverty line. County ranks in the bottom third of per capita income. And when those are the people you're saying you don't get to be a poet, what's being said is that your dreams and your horizons must be defined by somebody else. And all you've ever been good for is to serve the economy, in big quotes. And that made me politically angry enough to run for office, because I think part of why we struggle in places like this is because lots of politicians think all we're good for is to produce economy. We aren't good for our own dreams. So that was the foundation of my run, and the foundation of me losing by the registration margin. I got walloped 65-35.
Something I read in your book, someone approached you about considering switching party.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that. We have seen that happen where people who have switched parties, presumably they still intend to do the things they were going to do when they were a Republican or a Democrat and switched to Republican or Democrat.
Part of me doesn't think there's necessarily anything wrong with it, especially at the local level and state level. A political party dominates, but largely you're running on issues that matter. And so if one party is more dominant than the other, maybe it makes more sense for everybody just to hang out there. And so you can have meaningful conversations where you're just going to be ignored if you're in your other party. On the flip side, the reason I didn't do it is that what it means in 2020 and now in 2024 to be a Democrat or be a Republican has been so consumed by narrow branding that there was no space for me in the Republican Party at that point. Even though I grew up in the Republican Party, when I first registered to vote, I was Republican. In the landscape we have right now, it's hard to stomach being in the other place, because you become a rhino or a dino really quickly if you are against the party line.
Hindsight being 2020.
Yeah.
Are there any things that you might have tried differently?
I would not have run during a global pandemic. I think that was a huge strategic mistake, because I still remain optimistic that in interpersonal communication, you do have an opportunity to break down the carefully cultivated political narratives that prevent people from being able to see outside a party. But I think I would have been even firmer in my positions, and maybe even firmer in calling out what I see as not helpful. Like, I was going to lose from the day I made myself a candidate. And so there's very little point in trying to moderate a message when your actual opportunity, when you're in the other party, whatever that is to say what you mean so other people can hear it. And that might have an impact down the road. People get mad when you're, quote, negative, but I think we have to be bold enough to call out things we don't think are right.
So post-election loss and maybe even post-book, would you run again?
Yeah, so I really think of my profession now as a writer and a teacher as an extension of community making, which is what I really hope politics can be. I was running on, healthcare and environment and education, things that I think can help lift many boats. I think using my ability to communicate as a writer is a way to help others maybe recognize in themselves the deals they're not making out on. It was not an enjoyable experience. If I were alone in the world, I might do it, but it impacts the people around me. And it's hard for them as well to experience the vitriol that was coming at me, makes their life more difficult. And then also because politicians won't save us. We have to save ourselves. And I think storytelling is one of the ways, maybe uniquely Appalachians are good at storytelling, can start fashioning new ones to save us all.
That was Matthew Ference, speaking with Inside Appalachia producer Bill Lynch. His book is I Hate It Here, Please Vote For Me. It's available from West Virginia University Press. West Virginia is home to more than 100,000 stray cats. That's according to estimates from the state's Federation of Humane Organizations. Most aren't spayed or neutered, which only increases the problem of overpopulation. Pet advocates say subsidies for the procedure and pop-up clinics can help. But as WVPB's Jack Walker reports, so can creative efforts to find cats a home.
Walk through downtown Berkeley Springs, and you might pass a red house displaying large murals of cats. It's not too hard to guess what's inside. Since 2017, Give Purrs a Chance has connected cats in need with aspiring pet owners from Morgan County and beyond. But it's different from your typical adoption agency. Give Purrs a Chance is a cat cafe, a place where visitors can pay to meet adoptable felines living in a semi-open floor plan. George Farnham is the Cat Cafe's president and founder. He first heard of the concept after a similar organization popped up in California in 2016.
I thought it would be perfect for Berkeley Springs, and it's worked out great.
The first documented cat cafe opened in Taiwan in 1998. Patrons could sip a cappuccino and bond with a cute animal at the same time. The business model quickly spread across cities in East Asia, where pet ownership was often not allowed in urban apartment spaces. More recently, the phenomenon has reached Europe and North America. But instead of being a long-term home for a small group of cats, many cat cafes in the United States cycle adoptable pets into the cafe with the goal of introducing them to a prospective owner. And while Cat Cafe might be a catchy name, health code restrictions mean that many locations, like the one in Berkeley Springs, can't actually serve food. Still, the base concept of an open floor plan where people and cats can mingle has remained. Advocates like Farnham say it's a more comfortable environment for everyone.
It's really the new wave of how cat adoptions will be handled, where they can live in a cage-free environment instead of being in a cage where you'd see them at the pet store or at a shelter, and it's really hard to get to know their true personalities in those circumstances.
Visitors to Give Purrs a Chance pay $10 to explore the multi-floor facility. The turnout is quite impressive. Farnham said up to 200 visitors stop by the Cat Cafe each week, and that they average one cat adoption per day.
He's the sweetest cat ever. He's actually might be going home today. He's an approved cat.
That's awesome.
But yeah, he just came in last Friday. But even though he's older and missing a leg, he got adopted right away.
Aww. Marlena Woods, another staff member at Give Purrs a Chance, said successful adoptions have been the best part of her 3 years on the job.
Oh, it's been pretty good. Yeah, I think it's been over 1,000 cats since I've been here. So wow. It's nice to see them all get their homes and stuff.
Each room houses a number of cats, sectioned off according to space and their individual needs. Look behind a couch, up a cat tower, or onto a windowsill, and you'll probably find a feline lounging around, like Jingle Jane, a 2-year-old Maine Coon mix I met who's been at the center for a few months. I asked Jingle Jane her thoughts on the Cat Cafe, but she got a little shy at the sight of my microphone.
That's Jingle Jane, the cat we were talking about earlier.
Hi, Jingle Jane. What's your favorite part of the Cat Cafe? No answer. Most of the cats at Give Purrs a Chance are brought in from southern West Virginia, where cat overpopulation is more severe. Jared Vanatter is president and clinic manager at Help for Animals, a spay and neuter facility in Cabell County. He said the problem largely comes down to cats roaming freely outdoors, and having litters upon litters with minimal oversight.
That population has the potential to explode if it's not checked. Being a rural county or a rural state and rural area that we live in, spay and neuter has usually been the second thought for generations before us.
Venator says increasing spay and neuter procedures is a big part of the effort to reduce overpopulation and give cats better lives. But another step is finding the cats already here a forever home. And Venator is optimistic about the role cat cafes could play in that effort.
Having a good marketing scheme to draw in the clients to adopt is a big part of the adoption program. Getting the word out there and educating those that are adopting.
All the cats that come to give PERS a chance are spayed or neutered to make sure overpopulation doesn't continue once they leave the facility. They also get medical exams and a microchip to make sure they're ready for adoption. Farnham says as long as his cats continue to find homes, he has a good reason to keep the cat cafe up and running.
The cats are always an inspiration, so that's the fun side of the job, is having so many cats that have gone to their forever homes.
And recently, more cat cafes have popped up in other parts of West Virginia. There's a new one up and running in Fairmont, and another one on the horizon in Charleston. Thanks to the work of cat cafe staff, that means a lot more animals in need could soon find homes in the Mountain State. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Jack Walker in Berkeley Springs.
Till next time, thanks for joining us as we journey throughout Appalachia. Our theme music is by Matt Jackford. Other music this week was provided by Christian Lopez, Harvey and Copeland, Todd Burge, Dinosaur Burps, Paul Loomis, and Blue Dot Sessions. Bill Lynch is our producer. Xander Alloy is our associate producer. Our executive producer is Eric Douglas. Kelly Libby is our editor. Our audio mixer is Patrick Stevens. We had help this week from Folkways editor Chris Julin. You can find us on Instagram @InAppalachia. You can also send us an email to insideappalachia@wvpublic.org. Visit wvpublic.org/InsideAppalachia to subscribe or stream all of our stories. Or look for Inside Appalachia on your favorite podcast app. Inside Appalachia is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Support for Inside Appalachia is provided by Concord University, offering 31 bachelor-level degrees and 6 master-level degrees for students of any age. More information at concord.edu.